Good evening, it's April 5th, and welcome to Cape Media News, your source for hyperlocal news that matters. I'm Mitch Sock. Governor Maura Healey visited Cape Cod YMCA this Wednesday to announce the expansion of the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative as part of her Gateway to Pre-K program. Many local and state officials were in attendance, including State Senator Julian Cyr, Barnstable Town Manager Mark Ells, Early Education and Care Commissioner Amy Kershaw, and several Barnstable educators and child care professionals, amongst many others. The CPPI puts $3.4 million towards increased access to high-quality preschool education and resources. Here's Governor Healey to speak more on that.
That's why this year we came in and we set a new goal. And the goal is this: let's have universal pre-K in all 26 Gateway communities across Massachusetts in the next 2 years, and eventually every 4-year-old statewide. That's where we're going. That's what we're starting to make happen by launching something we call Gateway to Pre-K. Today, we're announcing yet another step forward in putting that plan into action. We're awarding 16 school districts in gateway cities and rural communities a combined total of $3.4 million to expand access to affordable, high-quality preschool. These grants come through the expansion of an existing program, which is the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, or CPPI, that we funded with the legislature this year in this year's budget. 9 currently participating districts from Springfield to Sandwich will be able to expand their efforts as a result. They'll add 32 preschool classrooms for an additional nearly 500 seats across public schools, Head Starts, YMCAs, and other community-based school programs. In addition, 7 districts will receive CPPI grants for the first time, including right here in Barnstable. So that's great. We are also going to cover Fitchburg, Quincy, Pittsfield, Wareham, Worcester, and the Gateway Regional District, which includes rural towns in western Massachusetts. We're now supporting preschool access in a total of 17 out of our 26 gateway cities, moving us closer to achieving the goal we set of all 26 and bringing rural communities into the fold as well. These programs meet the needs of diverse families, build on trusted relationships with institutions, organizations like YMCA, and promote inclusion through special education across all settings.
Join the Chatham Conservation Foundation in their week-long Earth Day celebration. Beginning on Earth Day, April 20th, and ending after Arbor Day on the 27th, the Chatham Conservation Foundation is partnering with dozens of local businesses and organizations to offer many Earth-appreciating activities. There are plenty of events to choose from, such as a tree and daffodil walk at Sylvan Gardens, an after-school beach cleanup at Chatham Community Center, a clothing swap at Cinder and Salt, and lectures on Chatham's conservation history. There will be over a dozen free events all week, with more additions to the schedule still to come. Make sure to check out the full schedule and pre-register for any event you're interested in at chathamconservationfoundation.org. The Town of Barnstable's Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day is tomorrow, Saturday, April 6th. Do you know which household products are dangerous to throw in the trash? Things like pesticides and lawn chemicals, cleaners, disinfectants, arts and craft supplies like hobby glue, auto and boat fluids, pool chemicals, and oil-based paints could contaminate local drinking water if disposed of in the garbage or sent down the drain. Bring your hazardous materials to the Barnstable Transfer Station on Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon to help keep our aquifer clean. The next collection day after tomorrow will be June 22nd. Have you been hearing sounds of explosions in the West Barnstable area? No need to fear. During their construction, Eversource is using a technique called implosive splicing to connect high-tension power lines. This method joins high-voltage conductors using an implosive charge to bond the surfaces inside the high-tension power lines to quickly create a permanent connection without the need for heavy machinery. The closer you are to the construction along the power lines, the more intense you'll hear and feel these explosions, as the blast can be pretty powerful. While there's no set schedule for when this will be happening, expect it to continue throughout the duration of Eversource's construction. Coming up after the break, Harwich citizen petitions. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Mitch Sock. This past week, Harwich resident Patrick Otten presented his 4 citizen petitions to residents at the 204 Sisson Cultural Center. 3 of Otten's petitions focus on measures to protect trees and wildlife, and the 4th proposes a question for a community pool. Here's Patrick with a brief explanation of each petition.
So there's 4 citizens petitions. Well, there's 5 citizens petitions. 4 of them are mine, that I was the original lead petitioner. So the first one is reducing the application of fertilizers on your property. All right. It doesn't stop application, it simply reduces. It's saying use organic fertilizers on your gardens, on your flowers, on your vegetables, and on your fruits. The second citizen's petition is about pesticides, and that is reducing pesticides use outdoors. There are exceptions, of course, but the general spraying for, say, ticks or mosquitoes or caterpillars, no. No longer are we just simply broadly using pesticides for spraying. If you're worried about ticks and mosquitoes, put the deterrent on yourself, whether it's wearing clothing or whether it's putting an application on your skin, or come indoors, put screens up. The third public citizen's petition is on tree cutting. For every private lot that is owned, there are defined setback perimeters around the edges of all lots, whether it's private, whether it's commercial, whether it's industrial. It's those areas that we're going to define protected trees when there is construction going on. So only when construction is being planned for a yard, a lot, the trees in that perimeter setback area, greater than 6 inches diameter, are called protected trees. You're not supposed to cut them. If you do cut them, you have to replace the equivalent in diameter, or you pay into a tree preservation fund. Okay. The 4th citizen's petition, and the fun one, I hope, is about whether or not Harwich voters, residents would like to have a pool. It's just simply a yes/no question. Would you like to have a pool? And the Harwich Community Center back in 1997 was designed to have a pool. It hasn't happened since. About every 5 years, this question comes up. But finally, let's get a broad public opinion about what the public would like to have. If there's good support for it, we'll move forward. The next step for the pool study would be feasibility study. What are the costs? Who's going to lead it? Who's going to develop it? Who's going to run it? So we need to answer those questions. But the very first question we need to ask is, do people want it?
Congratulations to Harbor Master Stuart Smith on his retirement after 39 years with the town of Chatham. Before becoming a wharfinger, Smith started his career working for the Highway Department in 1985. In 1999, Smith accepted the Harbor Master position, and the rest is history. The Town Hall Annex hearing room was crowded last Friday to send Smith off and swear in the next Harbor Master, former Coast Guard officer Jason Holm. Best wishes to Smith in his retirement, and welcome aboard, Harbor Master Holm. Last week, Maura Healey swore in the new members of her Youth Advisory Council, 2 of which are Barnstable Youth Commissions, Lake O'Reilly and Piper Hunt. The Governor's Youth Advisory Council, made up of 60 members ranging in ages from 16 to 21, will serve 2 years advising the governor, lieutenant governor, and administration on critical issues impacting Massachusetts like education, climate, housing, mental health, and youth violence. In her speech, Governor Healey said, "Every day, our administration is making policy decisions that have a significant impact on the lives of younger people for generations to come. Now, through this advisory council, they will have a direct say in their future." Congratulations to Lake and Piper. After 9 years with Harwich, wastewater superintendent Dan Pelliter submitted his resignation effective at the end of this month. In Pelliter's resignation notice, he said that it is with mixed emotions that I write to inform you of my decision to resign from my position. This decision was not made lightly, and it has truly been an honor to serve the commissioners alongside the dedicated team at the Water Wastewater Department. Pelliter will be moving on to work with a private firm. Dan has been crucial in the oversight of the comprehensive wastewater management plan's initial phases and has maintained the town's award-winning water department. Coming up after the break, politics and sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Mitch Sock. This week, the Harwich Select Board voted 3-1 to approve their annual town meeting warrant. However, it wasn't without controversy. Over the last couple weeks, concerns have been raised over the zeroing out of some of the projects in the capital plan, notably the renovations that are needed at the Brooks Academy in Harwich Center. Town Administrator Joe Powers gave an explanation of his decision at the March 25th Select Board meeting.
So what I tried to explain, and I say that truly, I'm hopeful that I've landed on that, but it is, it's parliamentary procedure stuff, and it's never usually straightforward. But, however, there is not a funding source that accomplishes what was envisioned under the capital plan for Brooks Academy Museum in fiscal year '25. Therefore, I removed it and had the conversation with the board, conversation with the finance committee, and it comes back to you tonight, because I would still argue that in the end, this warrant, these documents, everything that's presented that you support is your action, and I then become one of your lead proponents of all that. I am suggesting that if we remove it from fiscal year 2025, knowing that there's a better than even chance that we could have a special town meeting later in the fiscal year 25, first, you can amend the plan that was presumably adopted at town meeting on May 6th or 7th, and you would be amending it by adding the plan back, because now presumably you have a funding source for that. And to do so goes back to the discussion that we have had, the past few years, if you will, which amending an existing approved plan requires a 2/3 vote. So you could vote to put that in an out year, such as 2026. And that would be reflected in the appendix, and it would go forward and all that. If you wanted to then amend the plan in the fall, you would still have to do the 2/3 vote to take it from 26 to 25. So it really makes no matter to me, so-called, whichever you choose. I felt that it was being more transparent to not have it on the plan for 25, but I'm not opposed to anything that continues the conversation. So it really is, at this point, really a directive of the board.
Select Board member Don Howell was left confused by the TA's explanation and offered his input.
I don't understand, if we were going to go to a fall meeting, why we wouldn't just leave the amount in the capital plan for the Brooks Academy under the assumption that we're going to take a follow-on action. It doesn't have an article associated with it to actually fund it. So, but it's still a priority of ours. And you'd have to go through the rigmarole of amending the capital plan in October, say, when all you'd really have to do is put a funding article in if we had this accepted as is, with the amount in there. You're not actually funding the resultant project in the capital year, but you're showing it as a number, and it's got a placeholder then. And any time in fiscal '25 that we choose that we want to come up with an article to actually fund it, say in a fall town meeting, you wouldn't have to amend the capital plan at all then.
So what is a capital plan? Basically, it's the town's long-term financial plan that outlines how the town will fund major infrastructure projects. It's usually updated annually and used to guide the town's budgeting process. The zeroing out of these projects have left some in the community feeling that the town is abandoning the projects. Select Board member Handler spoke up at this week's Select Board meeting to help ease public concerns.
I think that there's been enough discussion that I've had with residents and the public regarding the removal of, or the so-called removal of some of the items on the capital plan. And my interest here and now is to make sure it's understood that I would feel more comfortable seeing some kind of narrative, and again, shooting from the hip, some kind of narrative to let the people who are very concerned with certain items of the capital plan being removed, that this select board, as far as I know, is not removing these items from the capital plan entirely, and that I view it more as a strategic effort to fund these items in the fall at the town meeting.
Although the town administrator and select board members, except Don Howell, seem to be on the same page about this issue, the same cannot be said for the finance committee. In their meeting on April 2nd, they voted unanimously to add the projects back into the capital plan.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of taking items that have worked their way up the capital plan and suddenly just throw them out, right? Just boom. Is it to say, well, you know, the golf course irrigation plan, it was in there to do it, but we didn't add the money, so now we're just taking them out the plan altogether and we never need to do it. Well, of course it needs to get done. It made its way to this year in the plan. So it must have had a priority, right, relative to some of the other things in the out years. Just like, and we get in this discussion about the Brooks Academy, for instance, you know, those funds, that money, need for that money was identified. We all knew it was coming. They just aren't able to fund it. Yeah, we hear things about potentially, you know, a grant or whatever. But you can't just say that project is abandoned. At least I hope you can't, right? And then the road maintenance thing was in there, worked its way up the plan, and here we are, right? So I mean, this is the first time I remember where we're just taking things and chucking them off the plan because we didn't have the money. And by the way, we didn't take the time or have the will to put an article together that maybe take it out to a debt service or something else. Michelle.
So can someone explain to me what changes between now and the fall that makes funding it in the fall? What's the rationale?
Okay, so when they say fall could be as late as Christmas. I mean, right? And let's just pretend, I'm just making this up, that we get our act together. Somehow we figure out how to get free cash certified. I don't know, pick a time. Let's say Halloween, right? It's a good time to get free cash certified, and let's just pretend it's $2.5 million. I don't know. They could say, okay, let's call a special town meeting and let's fund, you know, one or two of these or one of them or something, you know, with those monies.
And
In the meantime, project's off the plan, it's nowhere, so you're gonna be jumping the plan again to bring it back up, right? I mean, we sat in a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen in January, if I remember correctly, I don't remember the date. We had the capital outlay committee there, we had a joint meeting to review the capital plan. We all sat there and said, yep, that's the capital plan, and now it's not the capital plan. So here we go.
So that's where it stands at the moment. We will have to wait and see if the Finance Committee and Select Board debate this further before the town meeting, or if the debate will be settled on the town meeting floor. Finally, Ryan Downs is here this week with a summary of all the action in sports.
Thanks, Mitch. This past Wednesday night, the DY Intermediate Middle School Gymnasium was full of excitement as there was a basketball fundraiser game between the middle school staff and the combined efforts of the Dennis and Yarmouth police departments. This was the first game ever of its kind, and it featured a free throw contest at halftime, a 50-50 raffle, a student cheer performance, and the DY Middle School band. Doors to the gym opened at 5:30 for a 6 p.m. start, and all proceeds were given to benefit the students of DY Intermediate Middle School and the Sean Gannon Scholarship Fund. The game started off with the PD team jumping out to an early lead of 10-0 before the staff settled in and made back-to-back threes, plus 3 more free throws to bring the contest back to 10-9. By the end of the first quarter, the teachers were leading with a score of 13-12. In between quarters, the cheer students got to display all they practiced and show off their routines. The teachers stayed hot and never turned the lead back over, ending the first half with a score of 28-20. At the half, the free throw contest took place with entry for $1. If you made your shot, you moved on to the next round until there was only 2 left, a winner for the boys and a winner for the girls. The PD team came back from halftime with a new plan, and they just chipped away until they finally regained the lead for the first time since the start of the game, with less than 5 minutes left in the third quarter. The quarter ended with a score of 42-36 teachers. And in the fourth quarter, the teachers were able to spread the floor and get better looks at more open shots, which helped bring them back. With 4 minutes left, the teachers were able to tie the game up at 46 apiece. With a chance to ice the game, the teachers missed crucial free throws with less than 10 seconds on the clock. Regulation ended tied at 49. In overtime, it was all the teachers. They rattled off back-to-back threes and had the PD team walking around just wondering what happened. The game ended with the score of 61-51. The start of spring sports is struggling to come around as the weather made it difficult this past week, with almost every team at each school having at least one postponement. Let's get into all the action that did happen. Barnstable had a combined 12 postponements across its 11 athletic teams this past week, but that didn't slow down the track teams as both boys and girls kicked off their seasons victorious versus Sturgis last Tuesday. The girls' lax team and boys' baseball team also won their only games of the week to start their seasons undefeated. And the boys' volleyball team won their matchup versus St. John Paul II, which was the first ever boys' volleyball matchup between Cape Cod teams. Next we have DY. Their athletics were also plagued by 10+ postponements this week. But nevertheless, their softball team managed to score a whopping 29 runs in the first game of the season last Monday when they traveled to face St. John Paul II. The game was dedicated to Bobby Barboza, a player's dad who recently passed from brain cancer. The boys' lax team and boys' tennis team also won this week. Lax faced New Bedford last Thursday and won 12-6, while tennis beat St. John Paul II 5-0. Monomoy got off to a hot start with high-scoring games early in the week. The baseball team put the mercy rule in effect while hosting crosstown rival Cape Tech on opening day. That same day, the softball team traveled to Sandwich and put up 17 runs on their way to victory. And the boys' lax team traveled to Cape Cod Academy the following day and netted 15 goals, also leaving with the win. And Nauset managed to come out of the week with less than a handful of postponements and only one loss across its 10 varsity teams. The girls' lax team held on for 2 wins this past week as they took down Mashpee and St. John Paul II. Both boys and girls track and boys and girls tennis combined for a 4-0 record versus Falmouth as well. And the softball team traveled to Nantucket, but were unable to finish their game, so it has been suspended until May 20th when Nantucket comes to play Nauset. And that's it for this week's sports update. Back to you, Mitch.
Thank you for joining us this week. If you have a story you'd like to see covered, send us an email at newstip@capemedia.org. And tune in every week for more hyperlocal news that matters on Channel 26, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. Be sure to follow us on all our social media, including Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. For Cape Media News, I'm Mitch Sock.